So we created an e-commerce service because we already had quite a few e-commerce businesses, and that shit was that went crazy.
Oh, like dude, 100%. I got so many emails and calls and text messages, like just hilarious ones, like, "Hey man, what do you know about e-commerce?" Like I remember getting that message once and like laughing, like.
Oh, this
like,
actually reminds me. This reminds me of when James went to like the barber or something and he told her what he does. Like, oh, I run an e-commerce store or I'm in e-commerce. And she's like, what was that? Now you'll be able to explain it. It's like, now it's like, it's like, yeah, that e-commerce is the thing where you can buy shit online during a pandemic.
That's it, man. Yeah, a lot of people know what that word means now.
Oh, fuck. I feel like the search term for e-commerce went up like 80% in the month of February, apparently.
Wow.
Which is interesting.
80%?
Yeah, like on top of what it was.
I wouldn't be
like
surprised if it went up 800. I wouldn't be surprised if it went up like 800%.
Yeah.
Because like I'm not joking. I get messages and stuff every now and then about e-commerce, right? But the first like month or so, it was like just people I didn't even remember, people just coming out of nowhere, messaging me, asking me about e-commerce. Because that was at one point in time when there was a complete lockdown. We don't know how long it was going to be, right? It was like now we're at least seeing kind of the light at the end of the tunnel. Mm. But 2 months ago, we had no idea how long this tunnel was, how long we were going to be in the situation. So people were like, what can I do from home? Okay, I've got my computer, e-commerce, right? But the thing with e-commerce is it's not an overnight type of thing. It's something that takes, you can set up a website within overnight. You absolutely can. But all the other components that go into it take time, effort, resources, long journey.
Yeah, I think that's been an interesting thing. Like we had a lot of queries from small businesses, and you could sort of tell that they were just fishing around to see how much it would cost them. And you know, you quote someone like $1,000 on like a tiny, quick Shopify setup or something like that, and they'd be like surprised. And then you'd have to tell them, well, you're gonna have to do all this other stuff. And so you just say to them, like, look, don't worry about it. You're just gonna have to go set up this, and this, and come back when you're ready. But it's weird because a lot of these businesses would have gone from, and this is a weird thing probably for us because we all work in businesses where you're working on the business, if that makes sense. Like most of our time, I would say, like I know, James, you'd be handling customer queries, but you're still spending time on things like marketing, supply chain, and other stuff like that. It's very different to retail where you're just, 9 to 5 or 10 to 6 or 11 to 7, you're in the store. And then you're having to do all the other shit on top of that. It's, I would sort of see it as like a really freeing moment for someone who is running a retail store, if they can survive it. Now,
if they can see what you see, right? So, for instance, if someone's working in a brick and mortar store, and then the store shuts down, all of a sudden there's panic. How do I sell my whatever I'm selling, right? Let's say they weave baskets, right? And they sell these baskets at their store. Now the store shuts down and they have 0 customers. They went from all these customers to literally 0. Now, if someone hired you to open up a store for them for $1,000, that is actually that's an investment. Because I'm sure their rent is probably $1,000 or more. I don't know, depending on where you're at. But $1,000 seems fairly low for rent for a store, right? But here's the thing. This store is open 24 hours a day. This store can be automated, right? This store doesn't require you to be sitting inside a box for 12 hours a day. Yeah. So just what you get out of that, what it is a limitation to seeing how big you can make your store, right? Because if you're just that little corner shop in town and you're used to having 15, 20 people come through your store a day, small numbers, maybe closing 2, 3, 5, I don't know, right? It's hard sometimes to see, wait a second, what if we times that number by 100, right? It's just like what it is your perception, your ability to see what that $1,000 store can do for you.
And that's the hardest part of the sell. And for some people, they just can't see that. Now, speaking of stores, how we were speaking about our business and how much has changed in the last few months in particular. How's the pants game, boys?
Yeah, man, the pants game has been fairly good for us, all things considering. We've had a bunch of things that are kind of working against us, right? Like we have a lockdown where people literally can't leave their houses, right? They're not supposed to. We, at the time, and still even right now, we were selling winter pants when it was not winter. Our flagship product of pants is a fleece-lined waterproof winter pant. And so now we're pretty much into summer now, right? We definitely were all through the thick of spring, still selling winter pants. But because of the way that the whole the lockdown, what the lockdown did to e-commerce, we were still getting and we still are getting reasonable ad costs, and people are still buying our product because people are hiking, people are going out to enjoy nature instead of doing whatever they were doing before, right? They have the time now. So we lucked out in a way.
Yeah, that's interesting. Did you guys, because I remember at some point, James and I were talking about, that's when I sent you that info. I think it's COVID19.info.
COVID Live?
COVID-19 Live.info. By the way, I was looking at that when we first, COVID-19 info.live, sorry. I've referenced this so many times. And I remember we were, this is what we were first looking at. And this is actually before it really kicked off in Australia. And I stopped looking at this a while ago. It's actually interesting seeing it now. Canada, 88,000. Man, Brazil's catching up to the US pretty fast. Yeah, I remember they were saying around like the supply chain issues. There's so many businesses in the e-commerce space that we knew that had issues getting product out of China. And then now they're sort of back, not normal, but they're like back to 50% capacity manufacturing. Have you guys used this time to think about new products at all?
It's a great question. We've used this time to think about, because it has exposed some potential weak links. But this is something that we actually had a long discussion about, Sonny and I and Nav as well, about, where we are manufacturing our products, where we're shipping them from, looking at trends of what's happening there. Because one thing I think this pandemic has done is that it hasn't necessarily changed anything. It's kind of just accelerated or exposed things that were already going to happen, or accelerated the rate that they are happening. And I think in terms of manufacturing, like we see that it is starting to, people are reassessing China for a lot of manufacturing for a number of reasons. Wages are going up, things aren't as cheap anymore. There's geopolitical issues like tariffs, all this stuff. And so that is definitely something that we are considering now.
Yeah.